and YouTubers. Kim here at Hancock Homestead and Gardens, and today I want to tell you the story of our century-old barn and tell you what some of the benefits of a barn might be on a homestead. Okay, let's go. Good boy. The real story of this barn starts here in the middle because this barn has two stories to tell. The first part of the story starts on the south side. This side of the barn was built by John's grandfather, Preston Hancock, in the late 1800s, around 1870. And the second part of the story starts on the north side. This side of the barn was built by John's father, Austin Hancock, in the late 1940s, right after World War II. And then John even has a part of the story because in the late 1980s, he raised the middle part of the barn roof so that larger tractors could get inside. Okay, so I'm standing in the center of the barn on the east side, and this is where I'm going to start my tour of the barn. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to walk into the east side, down the center, and show you both sides of the barn. The center part connects the two sides together. So this here is a display that we put up every year for Thanksgiving. We moved the great big hay bale to the front of our yard, and then we put the head in the front and the tail feathers in the back. And we've had it since our kids were very small. We are now in the middle of the barn. Okay, so now we're looking on the south side of the barn. And this side of the barn was built by John's grandfather in the late 1800s. Okay, so right now I'm standing in the south side of the barn. And this side of the barn was built in the late 1800s. And at that time, they were still using horses and mules to do their farm work, to pull the implements. And so this part of the barn was used to house those horses and mules. It has 4 compartments, 4 stalls. It has a stall here. And then if I walk down to this side, you will see that there's a stall here. And these 2 stalls were used to house the mules. The Hancock family had 2 very large, strong mules named Tom and Jim. And then opposite of those stalls were another set of stalls. This one here was used to house a large horse that was used to pull their buggy, their transportation to get around. And then at the other end is another larger stall that has a sliding door on it that they put the buggy in to use as transportation. And then the center of the south side is where they would store the hay and the straw and the feed and the tack and anything else they would need to use for their farm. There is the barn. Okay, so now I'm going to walk into the south side of the barn to give you a little bit of a different perspective. And remember that the south side is the side that was built in the late 1800s for horses and mules. And I want to show you some of the old tack that we found. That there was a horse collar, and those up there were for a pair of mules. And then this down here are just some of the old tools that we found laying around. I think
that that is an ice pick. When the pond would freeze over and they would cut the ice into squares to use in the ice boxes, that's what they would use to pick them up and to store them in sawdust. Okay, so going on down the table here, you can see some of the collars that were worn by the horses and the mules to pull the implements. They had wood in the middle, I think for the comfort of the animals, and then there was steel going along the edges for the rings and to add stability and strength. And then over here is all of the leather straps that they would hook onto the animals to pull. And this here used to be part of an old wagon. You can see the wooden spokes on there. They used a lot of wood and metal together. And then I do not remember what this tool is called, but it has a very long handle with a blade at the bottom, and it used to cut tall grasses. Okay, so that shows you some of our barn. This is the southwest corner. We used to use it for rabbits. When the kids were in 4-H, we had rabbit cages sitting all the way down these tables. So we've had plenty of animals using this barn as a home. And I suppose that leads me to the reason why a barn might be important to a homestead. So a barn has a very important use on a homestead, and that is to house your animals and to keep them safe from predators and to keep them out of the elements, and a nice home for them. Okay, so if I swing around, this is the north side of the barn.
And so now I'm standing in the north side of the barn. This side of the barn was built by John's father in the late 1940s after World War II. And he used it for several reasons. They had sheep. The Hancock family had the second largest sheep herd in Rawls County. They also kept cattle and hogs. And after John took over operation of the farm, he continued to raise cattle and hogs. So what I want to do with it is use it for goats. I hope to raise some dairy goats and make our own milk. Okay, I can do this. Sarah, come on, come back here. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tour of our barn. It's been around for 125 years now and has served many purposes. From the housing of the mules and the horses, to the sheep, the cattle, and the hogs, and maybe even some goats. And this great big turkey here, which we've had since our children were very little. I drew it, John cut it out, and then I painted it. And we've had it around for about 27 years now. And the kids have enjoyed it, the neighbors have enjoyed it, and now our grandchildren will be able to enjoy it too. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more about our homestead and what we do on it, please subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the section below and I will answer them to the best of my ability. I always like hearing from you. Well, this is Kim and Paulo from Hancock Homestead and Gardens. Bye for now.